The story of the execution of the 5 Amorite kings is found in Joshua chapter 10, verses 1 to 27, and it is a dramatic account of warfare, divine intervention and justice in ancient Israel. Here is the detailed retelling of this event, including its violent elements. The 5 kings of the Amorites, rulers of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish and Eglon, formed an alliance to attack the city of Gibeon. The Gibeonites had recently made a treaty with Israel and appealed to Joshua for help. In response, Joshua led a surprise march from Gilgal and attacked the Amorite forces. The battle was fierce and relentless as the Israelites clashed with the Amorite coalition. The air was thick with the sounds of swords clanging and warriors shouting. Both sides fought with all their might, but the tide soon began to turn in favor of Israel. The Israelites defeated the Amorite coalition with God's direct assistance. As the enemies fled, God hurled large hailstones from the sky, killing more people than the Israelites did with their swords. Additionally, Joshua prayed for the sun to stand still, allowing the Israelites more time to complete their victory. God granted this miraculous request, and the sun stopped moving in the sky until the Amorites were utterly defeated. The 5 Amorite kings fled the battlefield and took refuge in a cave at Makkedah. When Joshua learned of their hiding place, he ordered large stones to be rolled over the cave's entrance and guards placed there to trap them while the battle continued. After the Israelites had completely routed the Amorite forces, Joshua returned to the cave where the 5 kings were trapped. The following events unfolded. Joshua ordered the cave's entrance to be opened, and the 5 kings were dragged out before him. The captured kings likely stood trembling, knowing their fate. Joshua commanded his military commanders to step forward and place their feet on the necks of the kings. This act was a symbolic gesture, demonstrating Israel's dominance and God's power over their enemies. The commanders obeyed, pressing their feet onto the kings' necks as they lay prone on the ground, gasping for breath. After this act of humiliation, Joshua struck down the 5 kings. They were executed by hanging their bodies on 5 trees, where they were left until evening as a grim display of justice and a warning to Israel's enemies. At sunset, Joshua ordered the bodies to be taken down from the trees and thrown back into the cave where they had hidden. The entrance to the cave was then sealed with large stones, creating a tomb for the defeated kings. This marked the complete victory over the Amorite coalition and reinforced Israel's dominance in the region. The hailstones and the extended day demonstrate God's active involvement in Israel's battles. The act of placing feet on the necks of the kings symbolized absolute subjugation, a common practice in ancient warfare to display victory. Hanging the kings' bodies on trees was a public statement, leaving them as a grim spectacle for all to see, though Jewish law required their removal before nightfall, as stated in Deuteronomy 21, verses 22 to 23. Sealing the kings' bodies in the cave where they hid symbolized their ultimate defeat and humiliation. This story carries several profound lessons about God's power, justice, and faithfulness. God's sovereignty and power over all. God demonstrated his ultimate authority over creation by miraculously extending the day, making the sun stand still to ensure victory. He also sent hailstones to defeat the enemy, showing his power over nature and his involvement in Israel's battles. The lesson here is that God is in control of all things, including nature and time, and he can intervene supernaturally to accomplish his will. God fights for his people. The Israelites' victory was not just by their strength, but through God's direct intervention. The hailstones and the sun standing still were evidence that God was fighting for his people. The lesson is clear. When God is on our side, we can face even the strongest enemies with confidence, knowing he will ensure victory in his way and timing. The consequences of sin and opposition to God. The 5 kings represent those who actively oppose God's plans and his people. Their ultimate defeat and humiliating death underscore the inevitable consequences of rebelling against God. The lesson here is that no one can stand against God. Sin, rebellion, and defiance against him will always lead to judgment and destruction. The act of placing feet on the necks of the kings was a powerful symbol of victory and God's promise to subdue Israel's enemies, just as foretold in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 4. This imagery reminds us that God will ultimately triumph over all evil, and his people can rest in that assurance. God had promised to deliver the land of Canaan to Israel, and this event was a fulfillment of that promise. The miraculous victory and the king's defeat reassured Israel that God was faithful to his covenant. When God makes a promise, he keeps it. His faithfulness is unshakable, and we can trust him to fulfill his word. The importance of obedience. Joshua and Israel obeyed God's commands fully, carrying out his instructions for defeating the Amorites and dealing with the kings. Their success was tied to their faith and obedience. The lesson here is that God blesses and honors those who faithfully follow his instructions, even when the path seems challenging or harsh. A warning to God's enemies. Hanging the kings on trees and sealing them in the cave was a clear message to other nations. Opposing God and his people leads to utter defeat and disgrace. This story serves as a warning that rejecting or fighting against God's will leads to ruin, while aligning with him leads to life and victory. In summary, this story teaches that God is a powerful, just and faithful defender of his people. It also serves as both a warning to those who oppose him and an encouragement to trust and obey him fully. It highlights the overarching theme that victory belongs to God, and he shares that victory with those who remain faithful to him. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and share to help spread the word of our Savior Jesus Christ. And if you haven't already, come on over and join our growing family by subscribing to our channel. May God bless you and all your endeavors. Thank you for watching.